don't even think about me. Sit. Down. Down. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm joined by the amazing Charlotte Stirling-Reed, who is an amazingly qualified registered nutritionist and also has the most beautifully gorgeous baby bump here today, which is very relevant because today we're going to be talking about the diet of young females, particularly females of sort of reproductive age. And I know that there's so many things we can talk about here, but especially the diet of young females is not really optimal at the moment. It's not really where it should be, is it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we've got so much work to do on trying to improve the health of young women and women in general, really, because actually their diet is one of the worst across the board. And actually they're the people who are going to be going on to create our next generation, so it really does matter, and it's something I'm quite passionate about because I do talk a lot about maternal nutrition, I do talk a lot about infant nutrition, but when it comes to nutrition before somebody gets pregnant,
that's something we don't really talk about, is it?
Exactly. It actually gets ignored.
But it's so important.
It's so important. And at the moment there's not a lot of information available. A lot of people aren't making changes or eating the right things to improve their health, and it is very significant for the population who will go on to potentially have children and carry our next generation.
Yeah, because I think people, when they become pregnant, they get that shock and they think, I need to actually think about what I'm eating now. Whereas actually what they eat before then makes a really big difference.
Definitely. There's a lot of research now that says that nutrition before pregnancy as well as during pregnancy is really important for the health, the growth of the fetus, but also a child's long-term health. So it isn't just about what we're doing when we get pregnant or after we've been pregnant. What we do before pregnancy matters. And so for young women who maybe not even thinking about having babies yet, it's actually important for them to still lead a healthy lifestyle and still get all the right foods and nutrients.
So in what way is the young female in the UK, in what way is her diet not optimal at the moment?
So when we look at our National Diet and Nutrition Survey data, what we can see from that is that actually women have one of the lowest intakes of vitamins and minerals in the UK. So, for example, iron and magnesium, about 50% of women are below the lower reference nutrient intake.
That's quite shocking.
Which is quite shocking. The lower reference nutrient intake is an amount that is enough for only a really small percentage of the population, and 50% of women get intakes below the LRNI. So it is a real concern. There's other vitamins and minerals as well that they're very low in, which are important.
But iron is particularly key for women, especially because we need more iron than men do.
Exactly. Especially during reproductive years and also when we start menstruating, we need more iron in our diet because we're losing iron a lot.
Yeah, I think that's worth pointing out because the iron is obviously in your blood, and when you have your period every month, you're losing blood, you're losing iron as a result, so you need to take in more iron to replace that.
Exactly. And it's actually something that a lot of young women don't even think about is getting iron, and where do we get iron from our diet. We might think about protein, we might think about carbohydrates, but we often do ignore iron. And it's something that, as we said, is very, very low in female populations, and we need more focus on trying to encourage people to eat naturally rich sources of iron, basically.
What about, so as well as the vitamins and minerals, are there other areas where they're also not really meeting targets?
Yeah, so when we look at the adult population in general, we're not meeting targets for fruit and vegetable intake, we're not meeting targets for fat or saturated fat, we're not meeting targets for sugar or oily fish. So there's so many things that we're not meeting targets for in general. So when you add this to the fact that women in particular are very low in vitamins and minerals, you can see that there's actually a real lack of healthy eating going on for women as well as for men in general.
And that's worrying. So what should the female population be doing to sort of get their diet healthier?
So, big question. I think there's
probably many things.
There are many things. I think young women have so much going on, and I know this is very stereotypical, but we're thinking about, I don't know, men or work or exams or studying. we're thinking about families, we're thinking about our own lives and what's going on. And actually, sometimes nutrition and food isn't necessarily high on our priorities. But one thing I would do is try and encourage people to start thinking about your food, your nutrition, what you're eating, because it really does matter. And it matters not only for you now to get you to the healthiest place, but it could matter for future children and future family that you have as well. So first thing I would do is say, start thinking about it. Just start caring and thinking and learning a little bit about what you're putting into your body.
And it doesn't have to be anything drastic.
No,
it's just about eating more fruit and vegetables, being a bit more sensible, having a balanced diet overall.
Exactly.
You don't have to necessarily cut out every cake and chocolate, everything that is absolutely delicious that you really love. It's about introducing really good things into your diet as well, like more fruits and vegetables.
Completely. And I think that's the other thing that I would say that people need to do is don't worry about restrictions. Don't worry about cutting out whole food groups. You know, you can read online and you can see that actually one magazine says that you shouldn't eat fruit, one says you shouldn't eat gluten, one says you shouldn't have dairy. And by the end of it, you're eating almost nothing.
What have you got left?
Yeah, what's left? And it's actually easier and more fun to say, don't worry about what I should not include. What should I be including in my diet? And it does make your diet more varied. It makes it more interesting. You know, exactly as you said, Pixie, it isn't necessarily about highly restricting yourselves or having to make a real fuss over what you're eating. It's just about simple things that you can do to improve your diet day to day. Healthy, balanced diet, you know, it doesn't sound that interesting. It might not be as exciting as the latest fad that your favourite celebrity has followed, but it's realistic. And actually, it's much more doable in the long term. So eating well, balancing your foods, choosing whole grains, having fruits and vegetables every day in your diet, having some dairy or alternatives, and having plant-based proteins. That's what you need to think about, and that's basically where we get our balance from. And then, as you say, don't worry too much about whether there's gluten in it or whether you've had a bit too much sugar this week. It's about context and what we're doing every day.
Exactly. I think one thing we should maybe focus on a little bit is the oily fish, because I think a lot of people, we're not eating enough oily fish in general, and oily fish is so good for omega-3.
Our oily fish intake is not great at all. In fact, the majority of the population don't get enough oily fish, and I think the only population who are anywhere near is the older population who do get a lot more oily fish than anyone who is younger, and
fish
especially
has gone out of
female.
fashion a bit.
It has gone out of fashion. It has. It used to be so much more popular. People used to have fish regularly, and Fish Friday. What happened to Fish Friday? But there are a lot of people who choose not to eat fish for reasons whether they're vegan or whether they just don't like fish. And I think it's important to also highlight that that's fine. That is fine. But what you need to do is make sure that you are getting that omega-3 in other parts of your diet. So, for example, we can convert plant sources of omega-3 into the omega-3 that is really beneficial in our body. So, for example, things like walnuts, flax seeds.
One of my favourites.
Yes, oh my god, I love flax
I recommend
seeds
flaxseed to pretty much every single one of my clients. I'm like, flaxseed is so easy to incorporate into your diet. It has a really nice neutral taste, and it's really good source of omega-3.
Yep, and fibre. And it's also not very expensive either, and I think that's a really key thing, because people talk a lot about chia seeds and superfoods, but actually flax seeds are really great food. They're not expensive, and they're very versatile.
So we've talked a little bit about dietary changes. What about exercise?
So absolutely, exercise. We know that exercise is so important for cardiovascular health, for reducing our risk of cancer, for maintaining a healthy weight. It's also really important to try and stay active when you're young, and this can help with fertility, can help to improve things like our mood, which for me I think is the most important thing. A lot of the time people don't really associate exercise with mood and mental health, but without a doubt there is a connection. So
it makes you happy.
It does, and the more active you are, the better. Now, I'm not a massive, I certainly don't, I'm not a gym goer. I really am not.
But you don't have to be, do you?
Exactly, this is the thing. I think people think of getting active and exercise as an hour in the gym. And I would strongly recommend that you don't think about it like that. Being active can be whatever you want it to be. So it could be gardening. It can be getting off your bus and stop earlier. It can be taking the stairs rather than the escalator.
Taking your dog for a walk.
Taking your dog for a walk. Getting out in the sunshine. Going and seeing friends. all of these things, even if it's shopping, you do a lot of steps when you're shopping.
You really do.
So it's basically just what we're doing now, getting off the sofa, getting a bit more active, making sure that you're moving around more, and that is what getting active is about. It doesn't have to be an hour, 2 hours in the gym each week. But if, of course, you enjoy that, that's brilliant too. So, when I was younger, I did gymnastics, I did netball, and I still do a lot of swimming now. So I enjoy doing those. And so find what works for you, but just remember, it does not have to be you forcing yourself to do something that you don't want to do. Build that exercise in wherever you can and make sure it's something that you enjoy.
Exactly, you have to enjoy it, otherwise
Definitely.
you're not going to do it.
Definitely.
So those are all kind of changes that people can make to benefit their diet. And I know what some people are probably going to be thinking right now is, I could probably just take a multivitamin and I wouldn't have to worry about getting my 5 a day. And I think multivitamins, it's a little bit of a controversial subject, because some people are like, no, you mustn't put anything sort of artificial into your body. You must get all your vitamins from fruit and vegetables. But sometimes you just can't really, can you? Sometimes it's more difficult than other times.
Definitely. I think it's a really controversial issue, as you say, but I actually do recommend multivitamins to some clients. Now, the reason I recommend that is because, yes, in an ideal world, we would get all of the nutrients that we need every single day from our food that we eat. But none of us are perfect, and none of us are every single day making sure that we've ticked off, our omega-3, our iron, our protein. It would be really challenging. No one's got time for that. So what I would normally say is a multivitamin can be a very useful safeguard. It's absolutely not a replacement to a balanced diet.
Yes, I think that's really important to make that distinction.
Without a doubt. And I think if somebody is trying to take a multivitamin and then eating a load of rubbish or even eating very minimal, that's not going to cut it, because actually nutrients interact with each other. So just as an example, if you're drinking or if you're getting plenty of calcium in your diet but you haven't got any vitamin D, your bones can't absorb that. And if you're eating plenty of iron in your diet but you're not getting any vitamin C, you're not going to absorb the iron very efficiently. So actually we need nutrients to work together.
And the best way to do that is by getting them from foods.
Exactly. So you're getting them from foods. The multivitamin is simply just an added extra to try and safeguard against deficiencies. And for young women and any women, I would say that a multivitamin is a good idea, especially if at some point you are thinking about having children. It can help to boost your stores, and if you're having it alongside a meal that is high in protein, high in fats, and high in carbohydrate, then it will help you to absorb some of the vitamins and minerals from that multivitamin. So for me, a multivitamin is a great idea. I would definitely encourage young women to take some to help with some of those nutrition or those low nutrients that we see women having. But remember, it is absolutely not a replacement to a balanced diet. It needs to go in combination, and all you're doing is really trying to prevent deficiency by having and including that.
That's a really good thing to not have that extra stress, because
Definitely.
especially if you're trying to become pregnant, the last thing that you need is extra stress.
Exactly, absolutely. And actually, if you are trying to become pregnant, there are recommendations that we should be taking folic acid. So about 400 micrograms of folic acid should be taken if you are trying for a baby.
Even before you get pregnant.
Even before you get pregnant, and throughout the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. So if you are already if you've been used to taking a multivitamin, then that's even more beneficial. So I would say for someone who is trying, it's a really good idea to take a pregnancy multivitamin, because you just don't know when it's going to happen, and it's important to make sure your stores of folic acid and vitamin D are built up. So if you are trying for a baby, go for a pregnancy multivitamin, and before that, just any multivitamin is absolutely fine, and it will help to get you in the habit, so that when you do start trying for a baby or you do become pregnant, you're already in the habit of taking the supplement that's recommended. So yeah.
I think that's amazing advice. Obviously, Charlotte is an amazing source of advice for this kind of information. But we can't all have our own Charlotte wandering around behind us and telling us what to do. So I think people are not necessarily getting the best advice. Where can people find really actually good, solid advice? Not that's going to tell them to cut out gluten, dairy, eggs, and everything else that's wonderful and nice in their diet, but where they're actually going to find good, solid, evidence-based nutrition advice.
That's a really good question. I think that is so important, because, as I've said, women aren't doing brilliantly on the nutrition stakes in the UK. I think those that are looking for that information are ending up going to sources that aren't necessarily evidence-based. So you might read in a magazine where it tells you to cut out dairy or cut out gluten or cut out this whole food group, and actually that is not the answer. Unless you've been medically diagnosed and told that you need to cut any of those food groups out, there really is no benefit of doing so. So what I would say is make sure you're getting your advice from reputable sources. If you're looking, if somebody is talking to you about it and they are a registered nutritionist or a registered dietitian, then brilliant. The advice is likely to be evidence-based. But also you can go to the NHS Choices website. Lots of information on there on pre-pregnancy and pregnancy nutrition, as well as on the British Nutrition Foundation website. So there's loads of information on there. And of course my own website, which is srnutrition.co.uk.
Which will be linked below. And I guess
Perfect.
also, if you have a very specific question
Yeah.
that you're not sure that you can find the answer to online, find Charlotte on social media, especially on Twitter.
Yeah.
And send her a message, because
Yes, please do.
I love it when people send me messages and ask me these questions, because I'd rather they ask me than try and
Yes.
find it from some dubious website online.
Exactly.
So as long as you're happy for people
No,
to...
please do. And I love that. I actually find it brilliant when I get questions, because often they're new or exciting or a bit of a challenge. So do send me your questions. I've also started doing vlogs as well, so I've got quite a few vlogs on pregnancy nutrition, and my website as well. Lots and lots of advice on pregnancy nutrition on there as well. So you can check all that out. But please email me, ask me a question, Twitter me, whatever.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much
No
for
worries.
sharing all these wonderful words of wisdom, because this is such an amazing area of expertise that is not really my area of expertise. So I'm really glad that you can come on here and tell all these wonderful people about all your amazing knowledge.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's been
Thank
really,
you for having
really,
me.
yeah, it's been really, really interesting. So yeah, thank
Great.
you so much.
Thank
And
you so much.
if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and subscribe wherever it is. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.